Hi, Shane here. You're watching Sam for God, and this is Mark. Check her out.
So hi guys, how are you doing? As you guys probably all know, at the moment we're all under self-isolation, quarantine, lockdown, whatever you want to call it. At least in the UK it's been like this for the past month and a half, so I have found myself with a lot of time to read. I've always been an avid reader. I've always tried to challenge myself every year to read 50 books in a year, and I've not managed this yet. The most I ever read in a year was 40 books, and this was in 2017. But this year, honestly, I feel like I might be on my way to actually finally complete 50 books in a year. So as you would have seen the title of this video, in the month of April 2020, I read 15 books, and I didn't expect to. I didn't go into the month with the mindset of oh, I'm gonna read as much as I can, but I picked a book up that I just had on my shelves for a while that I hadn't read yet, and I read it, and it was it really got me back into reading. And then it just made me remember the joy of reading, and it kind of really became a way to deal with this self-isolation situation and the craziness of the world right now. It's funny because in the first couple of weeks of quarantine, I guess, I found it really difficult to read. As soon as we were on lockdown, I started a book and I was I can't focus. My mind was not cooperating with me. It was too distracted. It was too worried about things. It just wasn't helping. So in the first couple of weeks, I literally just spent it watching Netflix and Disney Plus and YouTube, and I was happy with that. It was fine. But like I said, about 2 or 3 weeks in, it was actually I think the 5th or 6th of April that I first picked up one of these books that you'll see here. I picked it up. I thought I'd give it another go and see if I can actually read without getting distracted. And yeah, I don't know if it was the book or it was my mindset or just kind of me feeling a bit more used to this whole situation, but for whatever reason I started to actually be able to read and enjoy it and not get distracted and kind of consume the book without just reading and not understanding what the hell I'm doing because I'm so worried about other things. And yeah, from then on, as soon as I was finished a book, I'd start a new book because I am at home all the time. I don't have a job right now. I can't really do anything else, so it became a way to kind of give me peace and distract me. So like I said, I read 15 books in April. These are all the books that I've read. You might be able to see them all. There you go. I've just picked them up. Lord have mercy, there's quite a lot of them, and they are quite heavy. I'm glad that I managed to finish on the number 15, because it would have been annoying if it was 14 or I don't know, 13 or something like that. I read the last one on this list, which I'll talk about in a second, literally in about a day and a half. It was the 28th of April, I think, and I finished my 14th book, and I was like, am I going to be able to squeeze in another book for this month? I didn't think I would, but I just started reading another book anyway, because it's something that brings me joy these days, and I really got into it. It was a really good book that made me want to read more and more, so I read it really quickly. And yeah, so this is going to be a long video, as you might be able to tell. I've already rambled on for ages, but I thought I would talk about the books that I've read in 2020 in April, in the month of April, and maybe you might get some suggestions and ideas of what you might like to read, because as far as I can tell, we're going to be in lockdown for a while still, and our lives have been changed for a long time, guys. Even if lockdown ends next month or something, we're still going to have a lot of time at home, I think, because just the way the society is moving and all the new social distancing rules that we're all just going to have to deal with and obey for a long time before things become back to normal. We're going to have some time. So let's start with the first book. The first book that actually really got me back into reading is Kim Young, born 1982. I think this book came out maybe last year or something. It's quite recent, this book. And it's also quite short, so maybe that's why it helped me kind of get back into reading in a time of crisis with this whole pandemic situation. But yeah, this book is about a girl. Oh, Lord have mercy. She's South Korean, obviously. It's set in South Korea, and it's about her life, I guess. It's a glimpse into a girl's life in South Korea, not right now, but basically kind of from 1982, from when she's born. You get to read about her life and when she gets older, when she gets married, and jobs and everything. It's very interesting. I've always been fascinated by the history of South Korea, and whilst this isn't necessarily a historic novel, it's fiction, it still gives you a glimpse of what life was like. It made me sad a little bit because there are a lot of I guess sexist rules still in South Korea, which is, to be fair, the case all around the world. Sexism is still very much a thing. But yeah, I would recommend this book. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 in terms of, yeah, in terms of stars. If you want to follow me on Goodreads, by the way, I do have an account. I will leave it down below so you can go and check me out. Anyway, let's talk about the next book. I can't talk too much about all of these books because otherwise this video is going to be very long. The next book I read this month is Notes to Self by Emily Pine. I didn't know what to expect from this book at all. I didn't have any clue what it was about. I normally don't read like too much about what a book is about before I go into them. It's just my preference. I prefer being as surprised as possible. I kind of like going into a book blind. But this is again quite a short book, and maybe again that's why it helped me for my second book. But I absolutely love this book. I think I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. This is essentially a collection of essays, notes to self, that Emily Pine has written about like her life and how she's dealt with it, and her alcoholic father, the childhood pain of her parents' separation. I'm just kind of reading the back of this now. Her unboundaried teenage years, infertility and sexual violence. Like, it's very hard to read at times, I'm not gonna lie, but it's also in many ways relatable, because I think we've all had some kind of traumas and sad things in our lives that we've had to deal with and maybe are still dealing with. So I think it was just very cool, very exciting in a really weird way to be able to read another woman's kind of life story and them being very vulnerable in it and sharing everything, and it made me feel less alone, which is good in a time like this. So I would definitely recommend this. The writing as well is very beautiful. It's very short. Like I said, it's a very candid book. It's beautifully written, and yeah, I loved it a lot. The next book I've got here is Wrinkle in Time, which is a pretty famous story. I had never read it. I'd never seen the film either. I believe it's a film. This is actually a graphic novel, so let me just show you some of the pages. Yep, this is the only graphic novel that I read. Every other book in here is like a proper book. But yeah, I haven't really read many graphic novels at all in my life, to be fair. I used to read them a lot as a child, like The Adventures of Tintin was one of my favourite book series when I was younger. But as an adult, I've never really read any graphic novels. But I thought in this time I might as well, you know, branch out and try some new genres, I guess. And this is quite a big and thick graphic novel, and it looked good. It has some good reviews. Like I said, if you've seen or know of the story of A Wrinkle in Time, because it's quite famous, you would know what it's about. But I did enjoy reading it in a graphic novel type format. It was really fun. I didn't think I would get into it as much as I did, like graphic novels. I don't know, because I wasn't really used to them. I wasn't sure, but it was great, and the artwork in it is really great. Really enjoyed it. Is the story my favorite story I've ever read? No. I think I probably gave this 3 out of 5. But I did enjoy, like I said, the format of this book, and I am definitely looking into reading more graphic novels. The next book here is Hunger by Roxane Gay. Now, Roxane Gay is a fantastic author. She has written a lot of great books. She's the author of Bad Feminist, which came out a few years ago, and I read it and I really enjoyed it. And this is a memoir of her body, basically, is what it says here. So it's basically, again, her talking about her life. All her books are non-fiction, as far as I'm aware, by the way. But yeah, so this really intrigued me, because I have always had issues with my weight, I guess, and eating and what to put in my body and etc. And I just thought I like her style and writing style from what I'd read of her before, so I wanted to give this a go, and I really enjoyed it. Again, I don't know if enjoy is actually even the right word, because it's a very difficult book. There are some very hard things in it to deal with, and because it's her real life and you read about it, it just broke my heart a lot. So maybe if you don't want to read something very sad, don't read it at a time like this. But also, as well as it being sad, it's definitely inspiring, because Roxane Gay is amazing. She basically tells you to be strong and not care about the world, and do what you need to do, and yeah, it's inspiring. I'm not gonna lie, it's not just sad, but it's also hard-hitting in many ways. There are some subjects in it that are talked about that just, I mean, Lord have mercy. Very candid again. She's very vulnerable in it. I love the woman. I've never met her, but I think she's a fantastic author. She seems like a great person, and I really enjoyed Hunger as well. The next book we have here might be a bit controversial, because honestly, I was so excited about this book. So this is The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris. I had seen this on, I don't know, book hauls and on Amazon suggestion lists, and I'd seen this a lot for a long time, and I had it on my bookshelf for a long time as well, but I just hadn't come around to reading it, and I thought, obviously, let's read it now, you know, why not? And I had such high expectations for this, because I've always been interested in the history of Auschwitz and the concentration camps and the Nazis and that period in life. I lived in Vienna for a while, and when I lived in Vienna, my school once took me to one of the concentration camps near Vienna. It wasn't Auschwitz, but I can't remember what it was, but I just remember having that experience and just feeling so sad, and seeing what the world used to do to these poor innocent people. Like, it was just, anyway, I was very fascinated by it. Obviously, I also love tattoos, as you might be able to tell. I've got some tattoos, and so I thought it might be interesting to read about what a tattooist had to do in a concentration camp back in the days. And whilst it was definitely interesting, like, I learned quite a bit about what it was like, I guess, to work as a tattooist in a concentration camp. I thought the writing in this was awful. I'm not gonna lie, like, it was very badly written. I didn't care about any of the characters, which is so weird, right? Subject matter like this with characters that you should care about. And I'm not saying like I hated them. They were all nice characters, but they were very one-dimensional the way they were written about. The sentences are so short and basic. Like, I just can't. I need books to have good writing for me to like enjoy them. I would prefer a book that has really lovely and beautiful writing and a really stupid subject matter than a book that has awful writing and a very important and good subject matter, if that makes sense. So I gave this 2 out of 5, and I'm not even sure if it deserves that. I know it's probably controversial because a lot of people love this novel, but like I said, for me, the writing, I just didn't do it. Halfway through the book, I remember I was sat here with my mom, like my mom was watching TV, and I was just like reading this, and I was like, Mom, I really don't want to finish this anymore because it's just angering me. The way it's written is so badly written. Again, I'm not even saying it's badly written. It's just so simple, the writing. It's like short sentences. Like, let me try and give you an example. Haustek turns to Lay. Pepin continues, I believe he will learn fast. He can't do anything but be appreciative, full stop. Like, the sentences are very short. Obviously, I can't really give you a full example, but the sentences are so short and so basic that there's just not enough character development. There's not a lot of feeling being put into the sentences, so it's very like a matter of fact. Even though it's meant to be like a novel, it's meant to be fiction. It's based on a true story, but it's meant to be fiction. So I just didn't really get anything out of it. I didn't feel anything, and that's just insane to me. And I think it has to do with the writing. So yeah, she's got another book, Heather Morris, which is meant to be the continuation of this, which I would love to learn about, because I would love to learn about that other character and learn a bit more about the history of Auschwitz and stuff. But I just can't bring myself to read it because of the writing. Maybe I will eventually, but for now I need a break. The next book, and this book I actually bought last month when I first realised lockdown was going to happen, because I was just like, I need some new books, even though I already have quite a lot of books on my shelves that I haven't read yet. But I thought I might as well whilst I still can, because I wasn't sure what was going to happen to like deliveries and everything. So I ordered this straight away, and it's Weather. Weather came out, I think, last year, late last year or early this year. The cover of it, I'm not gonna lie, is what really attracted me to it. And also the word weather, really, like, I just thought it was interesting. I wanted to know more about it. It's by Jenny Offill, and interestingly enough, it's actually now been shortlisted for the Women's Fiction Prize Award, which is going to be awarded in September. It was meant to be like decided on in June, but because of the situation that we're in, I think they're going to announce the winner later on in the year in September. But anyway, it's in the shortlist, so obviously people like it. And I really enjoyed it as well. It's not a 5 out of 5 stars for me, but it's a 4 out of 5 stars. And as you can imagine, this book is about the weather. It's about climate change. It's about life. It's about a family in America. And it's very, like, if I show you like the inside of it, it's not a lot of writing. Do you know what I mean? It's more like, I can't really explain it to you. It reminded me of a few other books that I've read, like Bluets, for instance, which is another favourite book of mine that I read a few years ago. It's that kind of style. It's very kind of short little moments that you kind of, yeah, you read it, but it's still about like this person's and this family's life, but it's like told in short moments, and yet it's still very beautiful. Yeah, I liked it a lot. I'll definitely read it again. It was very interesting. It's an interesting style that I like. Some people might not enjoy this kind of style. It's a short book, so easy to read, and yeah, I thought it was very well written. Next book, and this is actually my first 5-star book on this list, My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshfer. I think I've said her name correctly, hopefully. I'm not gonna lie, I ordered this recently as well because of the situation that we're in. It just kind of popped up on my suggestion which I read a little bit about it, and I thought this is definitely something that I want to read during this time. This is fiction, but weirdly, as you can tell by the title, it's very kind of relatable to the situation that we're all in now, because we are being forced to kind of have a few months, or maybe it can go up to a year, of just kind of rest and relaxation at home. I know we're not necessarily relaxing, as in like a lot of us are stressed about many things, but you know, we have to stay at home. And basically in this book, this character, the main character, who actually, interestingly enough, I'm pretty sure she's never named, if I remember correctly. Yeah, she doesn't have a name. So like you hear about her friends and like other characters in the book, but she herself, if I remember correctly, is never like referred to with a name. Let me just have a look. Yeah, I don't remember having a name, not gonna lie. But anyway, so she has had a tough time and she decides that she just wants to sleep for a whole year because she thinks if she does that, she can then refresh herself and her body and her mind and everything and start again and hopefully start better. She's obviously depressed, you know, and it's a very interesting concept. And yeah, it's kind of about that, really. The whole book, it's about her wanting to do that and her attempts at it. She's got a best friend in the book that she hates and loves at the same time. Like, she really doesn't like her, and she, like, the friend annoys her, but at the same time she loves her because they've known each other for ages and they're loyal to each other. I really enjoyed that kind of relationship, actually, the friendship between these two girls. I thought that was very good. Yeah, the writing was really good. It was very, very readable. Like, I kept wanting to read more, and it was very interesting. And I think, like I said, because of the situation that we're in right now, and I've felt similar in many ways, I think, to her in the past month or so, where I've thought, like, you know, it would be nice to just be able to sleep and wake up and things to be better. But obviously she's doing it for other reasons. It was very interesting. I really like the concept, and I think, again, if you're down for reading something like that, that maybe might be a bit like real and hit the situation that you're in right now. Some people might prefer, you know, escapism and reading things that are very different to the situation that we're in right now. But if you would like to read something that you might relate to in a very bizarre way, read it. I loved it. Like I said, 5 out of 5, and I would recommend it to anyone. The next book, and this is another 5-star book for me, Station 11. Now, this is a dystopian novel, and I don't really read dystopian books anymore. I used to when I was younger. I went through a phase of enjoying them, but yeah, it's just not really my thing anymore. I much prefer contemporary, or like just kind of prose, like beautiful prose kind of things, or essays and that kind of vibe. Yeah, anyway, I picked this up, and it turns out it's about a pandemic, which is hilarious. Again, quite relatable to the situation that we're in right now. So I don't want to give too much away, because I think one of the joys of reading books, in my opinion, like, some people are different, some people want to know everything about books, but I like not knowing too much. But the very basic synopsis of this is that yeah, this is set in like Canada, and just randomly a pandemic happens, and obviously then you have to deal with the issues of that. But because it's a dystopia, it becomes a lot crazier than obviously the world that we're living in right now. Of course, we're having a pandemic right now as well, but thankfully things aren't too crazy. In this book, the virus that causes the pandemic is a lot more extreme than the virus that we're having to deal with right now. So it, I guess, it kills people much quicker. And this is such a clever book, very, very well written again, because you kind of, you see kind of about 20 years of like the world. You kind of, it starts off with like modern day life, and it kind of gives you a day before the whole virus becomes a big thing. And at first I had no idea it was going to turn into a pandemic novel because it kind of starts off with some random guy going to theatre to watch a show, and then the actor, the main guy, collapses on stage. And I had no idea. I thought it was going to be about like life in Canada and theatre world, and like I thought it was going to be a contemporary novel, genuinely, because I hadn't read too much about it. And yeah, then it turns out to be a lot more, and you kind of keep going about 20 years into the future, and then every now and again you need to go back and learn more about the original characters. It's very, very well written. I can't explain to you how well it's written. I think that's one of the reasons I loved it so much, because it's just so well put together that there was no confusions, there was no time of me thinking, oh, who's this character, even though it does go back and forth even with time. It goes sometimes back into like when the virus has first happened, and then it goes in the future again, but it was done in a very cohesive way, so I never felt confused. And I really enjoyed the characters. I really like cared about the characters. I got to know all the characters very well. I loved it a lot, and I thought, again, reading it in a time like this was really interesting, because of course this is a lot more crazy than what we're dealing with right now, but it was just interesting to see what maybe our lives could have been like, and it kind of made me feel a bit lucky that we don't have to deal with that. But it also made me realize that we are in some way living in a dystopian novel, which is just something I never thought I'd say. Next book that I read is Gilead by Marilynne Robinson. Now, I'm pretty sure this book won quite a few awards, or it was definitely like nominated for some awards years ago when it first came out. I don't really know why I even had this on my bookshelf. I just found it and I just was like, oh, it's quite a short book, let's give it a go. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be, because like I said, I sometimes go into books without reading too much about them. I just kind of started reading it, and it just kind of, it was very slow to begin with. It really was, I'm not gonna lie. And it took me a long time to read it, even though it's quite short. At times I would put it down and just kind of read other books because I was just like, I'm not in the mood for this. But basically, this book is a big like letter, really. It's a letter from an old man to his son, because he's basically dying, this man. He's like in his 70s, and he's got a young son, I think he's about 7 or 8, and he knows that he's dying of old age or some disease or something, and he wants to write to his son because he's worried that his son won't remember him when he dies, when the son gets older. And it is very, very beautifully written, I'm not gonna lie. The prose in this is beautiful, but I just don't know if I enjoyed the subject matter. Like, it was interesting in many ways because I love reading perspectives of like older people and like their wisdom and what they want to pass on and stuff, and I just thought that was very well done with the granddad, or the dad, sorry, kind of I guess like trying to teach his son some stuff through his life by explaining his life to him and telling him stories. But it's also a very religious book, as in like, I don't want to, it's not preachy by any means. It's not like telling you need to believe in God or anything like that, but like the guy in this, the main man, is Christian. Can't remember what branch of Christianity he is, but he's very religious, and it has a lot to do with religion in it as well, which I actually found very interesting as well. A lot of the conversations that this dad has are about kind of him maybe doubting his religion, or like second guessing some of the stuff in his religion, and like trying to be as good of a Christian as he can. He actually works in the church, I'm pretty sure he's a pastor or something. Like he's it's very like the basis of this, the family is very religious, but there's also a character in it who isn't really like into God, and it's interesting. It got a lot better in the last like 50 pages of it, and whilst I didn't really enjoy it and I thought it was very slow to begin with, there was still a lot of like moments and pages and paragraphs that I thought was so beautifully written and so like interesting that I did have to like just underline them. I underlined a lot of stuff, so it was, like I said, it's a very well written book. It kind of confused me because it was well written, it had some great stuff to say, but I thought at times it was a little bit repetitive. I felt like I didn't really, like, kind of looking back at the book now, I can't really tell you exactly what the book's about, because it just was, I felt like it was just kind of going back and forth between one or two subjects, and it wasn't like, you know, written badly. Like I said, it was always like new and interesting the way it was said, but it was still the same subject matter. And I just kind of, at one point I was like, I don't really want to read about this anymore, like I'm kind of done with it. But like I said, it did, towards the end I even nearly cried, which was a surprise to me because I started it really not liking it. Anyway, I gave this 3 out of 5 stars, so make of it what you want. The next book I have here is God, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. Now this book, the Man Booker Prize Award last year, I'm pretty sure, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it won the prize, and it's also now in the shortlist for the Women's Fiction Prize, which is definitely well deserved. I love this book, I really did. It's quite a big book. I mean, it's not very big. Let me see how many pages it's got. 450 pages roughly. And I was very excited to read this, like very, very excited. And yeah, it's about a lot of black women's lives in modern day England. And I love that, you know, it's like different black characters and their stories. And it's told so well. And they're all kind of related to each other in some way. And I just think I needed a book like this in my life. I had never read something like this before in my life, and it's done so well because in even like the shortest paragraphs in this, you learn so much about the world and some of the issues that are still in the world and some of the annoying things that are still going on in regards to black people and how people, like, I guess, deal with them. And I don't really know how to explain this book because it's honestly, it was such a joy to read. This was a joy to read. It was funny, like at times I was laughing with the characters. I loved every single character. They were all so well developed, so interesting. I felt like I knew all of them very well. I thought they were my friends genuinely at one point because I just felt like I knew them very well. It can be a little bit confusing, some people I've heard have said, because there are quite a lot of characters and every kind of chapter focuses on different characters, and they all kind of, like I said, relate to previous characters, so sometimes you might have to go back to just double check who the previous character was. But regardless, it was so beautiful and every story was so interesting and I really would get into it, and it's just a great insight into black women's lives in modern day life in England. And I would definitely recommend it, and I genuinely think this is a big contender for winning the prize this year for women's awards as well. Although, I don't know, some people might say because it's already won a prize, maybe they won't give it to this, but it's a really good book. I recommend it, 5 out of 5, you should read it. The next book I have on this list is The Power by Naomi Alderman. Now, this book I've had on my shelf for I want to say 3 years now. I've been wanting to read this more or less ever since it came out, and I think this might have won some award as well. Does it say here? Oh yeah, Women's Prize for Fiction 2017. It was shortlisted. I don't think it won it, but it was shortlisted for the Women's Prize in 2017. So I think I got this in 2018 actually. And yeah, it's been just sitting on my shelf, and a lot of my friends have been telling me you should read it, it's really good, and I just haven't got around to it. And I thought this is the time to read it, and I liked it. It was really, really good. The concept is fantastic. It's really clever. It's about a world in which women have more power than men. They have like these special powers that can literally harm men, like, and sometimes women can't control it, like their powers, and they could easily harm men without necessarily meaning to, and it terrifies men. And it's so interesting because in, you know, the world that we live in, generally speaking, men definitely have more power than women in many ways, in every aspect of the world really, and it's normally women that have to be scared of men. And yeah, it was very cool and interesting and fascinating to see a world that is the opposite. And obviously the book's called The Power, so a lot of the themes have to do with power. And I like the fact that even though, yeah, of course, it's the book where women have a lot of power, but it still isn't saying that that's necessarily a good thing. And like, it's just kind of showing you what happens when people abuse their power, and like what absolute power can do and how bad that can really be, whether the people that have the power are women or men. And I thought that was really interesting. It was really scary at times. I liked the writing, it was pretty good. I didn't care too much about the characters. I think that's one of my main issues with it, because it took me quite a bit of time to read this as well, even though it was very interesting. Because yeah, I just felt like I couldn't really relate too much to any of the characters, or I didn't really care too much about the characters. I don't know why that was, like, I don't know. So maybe that's why I didn't really love it as much as I did. But I can't, like, you know, deny the fact that it's a very interesting concept, and I think I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, but it's more of a 3.5. I would recommend it if you want something different. Obviously this is a dystopian novel, it's not real life, but yeah, it was interesting. The next book, not gonna lie, I only bought this book because of the cover. Bought it a while ago. I think when this first came out, a lot of booktubers were talking about it and showing it in their videos, and I was like, I need this because it's beautiful. This is called First and Then. And this, again, is a book that I had on my shelves for a while, but I just hadn't read it because this is a YA novel, so young adult novel, and I don't read young adult anymore. There's nothing wrong with YA, it's just not my preference. And I don't know, I've really grown out of YA. I don't think I ever really liked it even to begin with, even when I was a young adult, but it's just not something I enjoy anymore. But I don't know, I looked at it and I thought maybe this will be a fun and beautiful and happy, heartwarming story because of the cover of it. And like I said, because I don't read too much about what's in a book before I read them, I just picked it up on my shelf and I was like, I'm in the mood to, you know, read something a bit more relaxed than like all the, I guess, heavy books that I've been reading so far this month. So I picked it up and I read it, in like a day and a half because YA is very easy to get through. And I liked it. It was good. It wasn't like amazing. It didn't change my life in any way. It wasn't the best YA novel that I've read or anything, but it was good. It was pretty well written. It's about some high school girl who is about to go to college, and you know, it's typical stuff, normal drama. This guy likes me, this guy doesn't like me. She's got like a brother, or not a brother, like her cousin comes and lives with her, who then kind of ends up becoming like a brother to her. It's interesting. It's like really well written, and the story was nice, and it was heartwarming. It wasn't anything that I hadn't read before, but it was nice. It was nice enough that I've actually now ordered Emma's second book, because that also has a beautiful cover. I looked it up and I was like, that's got a good cover as well. And I want to have that book as well, just in case I ever feel the need to read another YA, something a bit more relaxed and a bit less heavy, so I can just have that. Because I was happy with the writing, and I thought it told the story in a nice way. Like, I've read some really bad YA novels before, and I've read some really good ones. This was somewhere in between, but it was nicely written, and I'm glad I gave YA a chance after all these years, because I feel like I needed something a bit more relaxed and a bit, like I said, more light-hearted, I guess, even though this also definitely deals with some problems and issues. But the problems and issues that a high school student has obviously just aren't going to be as mad and crazy as an adults are going to be. So it was nice. I enjoyed it. Next, we have a collection of short stories, which is called Picnic in the Storm by Yukiko Motoya. This is the cover of this. I really enjoy reading short story collections, but they can be very hit and miss. It depends on, like, it really depends on the strongness of every story. Some short story collections I've read before where I've really enjoyed a couple of the stories, and then I've really hated the other ones, and then I don't really know how to rate them. But this one, I enjoyed the majority of them. There were a couple that I was a bit like, just not really that good, but there was some that was so good and so strong that I think I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. They're very short, the majority of the stories, but there's one story in particular that's called An Exotic Marriage. So if you get this book, and Exotic Marriage is definitely my favorite story in this. It's the longest story in this, and it's so weird. In fact, all the stories in this are weird. They're all about people living in Japan. So this, like, the author, I'm pretty sure, is Japanese. This is set in Japan. All the short stories are based in Japan. But yeah, it's like about more or less everyday life, all the stories. Like, they were about like relationships, husbands and wives. A lot of them, in fact, actually focus on like partnerships and couples and stuff. But in every single story, something bizarre happens, as in something that you just like wouldn't think would happen, as in something that isn't real. So it's a bit surreal, some of the stuff that happens in it, but it's so interesting, it's fascinating, and it makes you think as to why the author has chosen these weird things to happen in these stories, because they all have there's a reason for all of them, obviously, and it's so clever. And like I said, An Exotic Marriage is one of the most crazy and weirdly scary like stories that I've ever read, even though it's not horror. It's just weird and a bit terrifying, and also like it genuinely makes you think. So please, if you just want something short to read, get this book and read An Exotic Marriage and let me know what you think. Obviously, because this was translated from Japanese, it's not like the author's, you know, direct writing, so I can't necessarily, I guess, comment on the writing style too much, but the translation's good. I thought the writing was good. It wasn't like incredible, but like I said, it is a translation. It's more to do about the actual stories, and I loved it. It was just great. So weird, but so great. The next book we have here is called Nightingale Point by Luann Goldie. This winner of the Costa Shorty Story Award 2017. Okay, yeah, I think this was clearly initially a short story, and then they kind of, the author developed it into a longer story. This is actually in the long list for the Women's Prize for Fiction Award. It didn't make the short list, but it was in the long list, so you know, it's a good book. Not that you need to like base everything on whether or not something's been nominated for an award, but you know what I mean. Clearly a lot of people do enjoy this book. The cover really intrigued me, that's why I got it. But Lord have mercy, what a story. So this is about a bunch of people who live in an estate house, in an estate building in London, and something happened. I don't want to say what, because I just don't want to give too much away. Read it up if you really want to know what happens, but something dramatic happens to that building, and it basically changes their lives forever, everyone that lived there. And it's sad. Kind of the rest of the book is about seeing how they try and build their lives up again after this situation that's happened, this accident, I guess, and how they deal with it, and about the importance of community, which I think is again very relatable to what we're dealing with right now, because I think we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing or dealing with things right now if community wasn't a thing, if people weren't trying to help each other, if communities are just so important generally, you know, and I think this kind of reminded me of that. I want to tell you what this reminds me of, but again, I don't want to give too much away. But there was something that happened in London a few years ago, an accident that can very easily be comparable to what happened here. And yeah, go and read it. It was really well written. The characters I absolutely loved. Like, I really felt like I knew the characters again. They were very lovable, and I love the fact that there were different characters in here. Like, they weren't all young. There's like a character in here who's like much older. She's like, I don't know, in her 60s or 70s, I think, maybe. She's definitely older. And then there are some like teenagers in this. Every chapter kind of is told by a different person. It's not from a first person perspective, but it's kind of it's got the name of the character that it's kind of mainly focusing on, and you know, it mainly talks about them. I loved it. I thought it was very good. It's a book that's going to stay with me for a long time. Surprisingly though, I didn't give it a 5 out of 5, and I don't really know why. I felt like there was something that was missing in it for me, and I literally spent ages trying to figure out what it is that is stopping me from giving it a 5. But yeah, I can't really tell. I don't know. I don't really know. But I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads, and like officially I would probably give it a 4.5 if I was to be like realistic, but obviously on Goodreads you can't give half points. But yeah, I really did enjoy it. So now we get to the final book of this video. Sorry that I've taken your time for so long, guys. But this is the book that I literally finished the other day, last night, and it's called Your Silence Will Not Protect You by Audre Lorde. This is it. Can you see it? It's a beautiful cover, you know, very simple, very pink. This is a collection of essays and poems that Audre has written over the course of her life. She is unfortunately no longer alive right now, but she was an insane, phenomenal black feminist, and she was a lesbian as well, and she had so many great thoughts and ideas, and her essays are just beautiful. I honestly found myself underlying so many of her words, and they're very beautifully written as well. They're very easy to understand and read, and it was very empowering in many ways. It kind of reminded me a lot of issues again that are still happening in the world, and it did make me sad a little bit, but they are also like, it kind of just reminded me that my silence will not protect me, that I need to speak up. And I think we all need to speak up as women, as women of color, especially as women who might, you know, fall under other minority like categories. It's important to speak up when somebody says something that you just don't think is right. I struggle with this sometimes, and I have done before, especially. I've become better at it, but I think it's so important. If we want to change the world, if we want a better place in the world, as Michael Jackson once said, heal the world, make it a better place. Don't worry, I'm not saying you need to listen to Michael Jackson. You need to listen to Audre Lorde though. She is great. Her essays were great, all of them I really enjoyed. Her poems were great as well. I preferred her essays to the poems. Some of the poems I thought were a bit meh, and I think that's actually why I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars, because throughout in the beginning, the first half of it is essays, and whilst I was reading that, I was like, this is definitely a 5 out of 5 star book. And then I got to the poems, and some of them just didn't really do it for me, so that's why I knocked out one of the stars. But it doesn't mean it's a bad book, of course. Anything above a 3 I think is a good book. Yeah, I would definitely recommend it. And there you go, there we have it, all the 15 books that I read in April 2020. Let me try and get these back now, guys. Woo! Remember that nice pile of books that I had at the start of this video? Now look how bad they look now, Lord have mercy. But yeah, this is the stack of books that I read. Leave comments down below, let me know if you've read any of these books that I talked about, or if you'd be interested to read any of them. I think it is a good time to try and read if you can. Again, don't be too harsh on yourself if you don't feel like reading, but if you want to spend your time a little bit differently, to maybe just kind of watching Netflix all the time, this might be a good idea. Like, you know, when else are you going to have so much time to do things like this? I'm very happy that I managed to, like, I don't think I've ever had a month where I've read this many books in before. I think prior to this month, the most books I'd ever read in a month was maybe about 5 or 6, so this is pretty insane. And I didn't even start from the beginning of April. I didn't start my first book until like the 6th of April, so Lord have mercy, who knows how many I'm going to read in May. But like I said, follow me on the Goodreads. My account will be down in the links in the description below, because then you can see all the books I read and like my ratings and stuff kind of straight away as I read them. And you can also see obviously all the other books that I've read in previous years and previous months, etc. I think I'm going to do one of these videos every month maybe for now. I used to make videos like this all the time when I first started YouTube, like back in 2011. So if you want to watch like some of my other favorite books from like years ago, my tastes might have changed, but you can. If you just type in books on my channel, you'll be able to see a lot of my old videos, or videos that I've kind of made talking about books in the past. So this is it. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you're all well and doing as well as you can in these weird, bizarre times, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.